Welcome to Yoga is Science, the podcast where Western medicine meets Eastern philosophy. I'm Colynn Vosburgh, a former emergency room nurse and medical student turned full-time yoga teacher. With over 200 teacher trainings taught, I've come to understand how yoga really is the original science of life. And I'd love you to join me as we explore the profound ways that ancient wisdom and modern science intersect to support healing, growth, and transformation. Let's dive in. Today, we are talking about a concept consistently taught in yoga in the form of a question. And that question is, who am I? Who am I? So, after a few meditation yoga sessions and some lectures within yoga teacher training, I like to bring up the question, who am I? And I want to ask you that question right now. Who are you? And so when I ask this question to people, a lot of things come up. First and foremost, usually like I am Colynn, right? So starts with a name. I'm Colynn. I'm 45 years old. I am a yoga teacher. I am a woman. I am a mother. I am a sister. I am a daughter. I have all of these labels that I identify as. So let's take the mother one, because I know this one can be like impactful and deep hitting for some people because of the controversy around being a mother. So if I am a mother and I identify as a mother, a couple things come up. First and foremost, am I a good mother or a bad mother? So there's labels, and it goes beyond like, first and foremost, what is a mother? If I asked you, what is the definition of a mother? What are you going to tell me? Because let's just Google it right now. I'm just gonna go in the background, definition of mother. A woman in relation to her child or children. I love that because that's like a very objective, um, that's a very objective definition, right? Because, okay, a mother gives birth to a child. Is that true? Because some people give birth to a child, and that is about their role within this child's life. They may never be in contact or a part of that person's life. So does that technically make them a mother? And then there are mothers out there that have not given birth to a child, right? There are people out there, let's just say women, just to stick with like these norms or boxy terms, like a mother is a woman that raises a child. How about that? Right? Sometimes like grandmothers do the job of mothers. They didn't bring the child in. So this is why labels can be, well, they're subjective. They're like based on personal opinion, and that's the problem with labels. Is that there's more to it than an objective definition. If I say I am a mother, what I mean by that is like I have given birth to both of my children and I have raised those children, and I am still currently a daily part of their lives. I'm involved in their lives. I support them. I help them. I do what I can. I feel like I'm a confidant, a mentor, a leader. I'm also like a listener. Like there's so many things to that. So one of the things is like you could say I'm a good mother, but I could argue why I'm a bad mother because I live in a different country than my children. So I'm not like actually physically there. So can you see like for some people that don't live near their children, does that necessarily make me a bad mother? And if mother is an identity, when I that's like when I'm not around my kids or I'm not like super involved in their lives or micromanaging them that I can have a judgment about what kind of a mother I am. And other people can judge me based on what kind of mother they think I am. And when I'm not there and I'm not mothering, then my identity, unfortunately, is lost. Because if you identify as a mother and then that's what you put all your time and your energy into, and your children move out, you've just lost your identity. You don't even know who you are. A lot of parents, when their children leave home, have identity crises because they don't know who they are anymore. A lot of women, especially like um, my age and older, were encouraged to stay at home, raise children, and if they had any dreams or pursuits, to like give those up because those are selfish and to raise their children. And so, if they gave up all of those ideas, thoughts, pursuits in order to cling to the identity of being a mother, then when the children leave home, then who are they? So it brings us back to the question I started with, like, who are you? And in yoga, you're not your identities. Because, as I mentioned, what is a mother? Maybe if we all agreed with the definition of what is a mother, then we could identify as a mother and then also label bad or good. But a lot of these things are labels that we're identified as. Like, you're not your name, you're not your gender. You're not your where you were born. You're not your culture. You're not your skin color. You're not like any of those things. Those are things that we do encounter in our lives. Those are things that contribute to our personality, but they're not who we are. And that's what yoga talks about. So, okay, so if you're not your label, then who are you? And I want you to think about that. Like if you're anything that comes up, I am a nurse, I am a clean freak, I am happy. You're not those things. You can't be those things. So the next thing I like to talk about is your body, because a lot of people identify as their bodies. And you're not your body. And do you want to know like how I know that first and foremost is because if you were your body, then you wouldn't say my hand because your hand is a part of your body. And if you were your body, then you would say I am hand. And you would experience that, right? But you don't, so you're not. You have a body because you identify to your body the way you identify to a car, even though you're not a car. So if you're not your body, then who are you? So let's hit pause on that again. So you're not your labels. Okay. You have labels. You're not your body. So those are things that like it's pretty interesting. It's like you're given this vehicle, right? Think about this kind of like the concept of like a soul, let's say, right? So if you're your soul, then you can't be your body because your soul is housed within your body. In yoga, it's your Atman, like your true self, the essence of like who you are. And a lot of people misidentify and say things like, I am, like I'm an empath and that's just who I am. And it's not true. You're not an empath and that's not who you are. You may have empathy, or you may be actually saying that you're empathetic, but you're sympathetic. Because empathetic means that you can put yourself in somebody else's shoes and like be aware of their experience and therefore hold space for people to have emotion. Okay. When I meet people that identify as empaths, that's them actually being sympathetic and feeling emotions for situations that people are in. And that's different than being empathetic. Just throwing that out there. And actually it's a bypass to feeling your own emotions. Just throwing that out there. It's a whole nother conversation, which I could literally have a whole, I'm going to have a podcast and I'm going to call it, I am an empath. And then we'll dive right into that. But we're not going there because the idea is like, let's talk about the body. So if you're not your body, but you identify as your body, that's an interesting thing because a lot of people will say things like, I'm fat, I'm ugly, I don't like my knuckles, my legs are too skinny. So there's a part of you that identifies as your body, and your body's not good enough. And that's why this isn't helpful. You're not your body. Your body is literally like your car that your soul gets to drive for this physical existence. And that's it. It doesn't get another one. You don't get another body. So if you do not like the body that you're in, that feels like a life conflict, doesn't it? Like that feels like a conflict that you're going to have for your entire life. And then what happens, instead of looking within, like who you truly are, you're going to look without on ways to fix this problem that actually isn't a problem, but for some reason in your mind, it is. You have a body, and I'm just going to be general, and I know this doesn't apply to everyone, okay? But I'm going to be general. You have a body, and that body like works. And that body, let's just say it walks from here to there. This body functions. This body houses you. And instead of being grateful for this mass of biological processes that is a literal miracle, you are unhappy by the stretch marks on your thighs. That's what you're focusing on. That's what you're unhappy about. That's what's wrong with you, is you have stretch marks on your thighs, or your belly is too big, or your arms are too floppy. Can you see that if you identify as your body and your body's wrong, which I don't know anybody that's like, my body's amazing. I don't. Even fitness people are never enough. They just keep pushing. They might like a part of their body, but they'll tell you parts they don't like. When you identify as your body is not perfect, and therefore something's wrong with you. But you're not your body. You have a body. And when you have a body that is literally, as I mentioned, biological processes that are a miracle taking place, and you think it sucks, that creates suffering. Instead of recognizing that you're like a ghost, right? Or a soul or a spirit that gets to drive this body that you probably chose according to yogic philosophy, and how amazing this body is with however it is showing up, with regardless of the challenges that you do have in this life. Wow, of course you're going to suffer. No wonder you're unhappy. If you keep looking at your belly as a definition of who you are, you're just not going to be happy in this life. Then no matter what, like you'll just keep working on it. You, even if it's a six pack, I bet that you will find something wrong with it. So you're not your body. And one thing I have always said, and I truly believe, is like once you get the inside right, the outside will fall into place. When we work on the outside, the inside will never fall into place, because this isn't an outside job, it's an inside job. And you are not your body. You have a body. There's a big difference. And maybe when you recognize that you have a body and this body is going to function to whatever whatever you put into it. This body is going to function to whatever you put into it. It's going to give back to you. Then maybe you would start doing things a little bit different instead of shit talking it all the time and hating it or disliking it. Maybe you could start to be grateful for it and treat it a little better. Maybe instead of like blaming, I don't know, whatever your metabolism, you create a relationship with your body and you can actually start to feel when you're full. Here's something that's crazy to me that I've learned in the last little bit because I've really decided like prioritize my health because I'm 45 years old. And so I've been like, well, I want this body to last. And when I start to realize like I'm not this body, then I want it to be healthy. I don't want to be having heart attacks and diabetes and like not be able to walk. So for me, I've started to prioritize my health. And one of the things that I found out is a reason in like I have fat around my belly is because I don't eat enough, because I'm basically starving my body. And when I started to pay attention to my calories, I found out I'm eating like 700 calories a day. And to me, it doesn't make sense because calorie deficit is how you lose weight, right? So if I should be eating and according to, weight loss goals and what I want to do, I should be eating about 1,500 calories a day, so double what I'm eating. My logic doesn't make sense. But when I learn about the nervous system and what's happening is that my body is in starvation mode and it's afraid that if it doesn't hold on to my fat stores, that I'll die. But when I'm feeding myself abundantly, when I'm constantly eating in a healthy way, every 4 hours, small meals, my digestive system based on my nervous system is like, oh, there's this constant food coming in, you're going to be okay. So you can now use your fat stores and start working on that instead of just waiting for the carbs to come, processing them, and then waiting again. And then process it like it's in starvation mode. So I need to get it out. And then that makes more sense. I need to drink 3 to 4 liters of water a day. I never learned that anywhere. I need to walk 10,000 steps per day for my own cardiovascular health. I didn't know that. Why wasn't this just like in school? So when I no longer identify as my body, now I realize I want my body to be healthy and that what I'm doing and my habits are actually affecting what my body looks like instead of identifying as it and then trying to make it different than it is. And now what I create is lifestyle techniques for daily living that will support my metabolism, which doesn't mean I'll get skinny. It just means I'll be healthy. And that's what I want is like a quality of life as I get older. I hope this is landing. So you're not your body. You have a body, and the way you treat your body will actually determine your quality of life, especially as you age. So what do you want that to look like? Do you really need to be concerned about how skinny you are? Or do you think that maybe it's time to start like dealing with your constant stress and treating your body well instead of just trying to be skinny? So if I'm not my body, then who am I? So you are not your labels. So who are you? Well, you're not your body. So then who are you? So the next thing that will come up is either thoughts or emotions. And I just want to say that those two things the body has. So if you're not your body, then you're not your emotions and you're not your thoughts. So let's just dive into the emotion sections of thing. So you are not your emotions. It's funny because don't you identify it as them a lot? Like I am happy. I am guilty. I am blank. And if I cut open your body, I couldn't pull out happiness. So you can't actually be happiness. This is a concept that sometimes has difficulty landing. A lot of the time, I use this in like mental illness, right? My partner has bipolar. And so when I met him, he used to talk a lot about like how he is bipolar. I am bipolar is what he would say. And I would say, well, you're not bipolar. Like he can't be bipolar because bipolar is a label and you can't be a label. Now, he has bipolar, so that is a chemical imbalance in his brain. And when you start to disidentify or unattached to an identity, you have more power. Does that mean that he's like no longer has bipolar? No. What that means is when you recognize that you have bipolar and that it's a chemical imbalance in your brain and that your emotions tend to roller coaster, then there are things that are really important for my partner to do in order to keep himself as stable as possible. When he identified as being bipolar, then there was no way to fix it because it's just who he is. He's bipolar and I mean, when I met him, he didn't sleep great, he didn't eat great, and he definitely didn't exercise great. And what I know based on general health is that we have a pyramid of health. And the bottom row of the pyramid, our stability depends on three main things. Number one, exercise. Number two, eating healthy. And number three, adequate rest. It is important to have these three things taken care of before you try to do other things like have a calorie deficit. Like you need to eat well, you need to sleep well, and you need to exercise, period. And if you don't, or those things are altered, then your nervous system is off and all of the systems in your body are then off. And that is destabilizing or dysregulating. And when you're dysregulated, I mean, you already know because you probably are right now, right? You're not happy. You identify as all these other things. You suffer. And so we've had this conversation many, many times. And I believe that like he's seen that as well, because now it's just really important that he exercises. I mean, it's all the things. It's really like if he doesn't sleep, it's not okay. And if he doesn't exercise, it's not okay. And if he doesn't eat well, it's not okay. So these are three things that he can control that help him to stabilize or regulate so that the imbalance doesn't imbalance even more. But if you identify as your disease, as your illness, as your injury, then you're powerless. And I'm not saying it's like this easy, right? I mean, my partner takes meds every day. As takes meds, exercises, eats well, and sleeps as much as he possibly can in order to be as regulated as he can, so that when the imbalance is active, I guess is the way to say it, that actually he moves through those things much quicker. And to be honest, what I've noticed is he's like actually a lot more stable the in the instability because he has these foundational pillars like strongly rooted so that he doesn't topple easy. Does that make sense? Like if I was to show you, like if I was to give you a visual right now of my partner when I met him, I would imagine like a table with one leg, like a diner table. And that one leg was like all the things because he wasn't really stable. And then when we got together and like my life, it's very important that I do these things. He called me militant for a very long time and still believes that, I'm sure. But for me, like, in order for me to be okay, I need to eat well, I need to sleep, and I need to exercise. And so if you add the medication, this is now I see my partner as a four-legged table. So that if one leg kind of gets kicked out, let's just say you can't sleep or something happens, that it's not as dysregulating as it would be if he was a one-legged table. And I want you to apply that to you. So you are not your emotions. You cannot be happiness. Happiness is transient. Happiness is temporary. Therefore, you can't be it. It's a label, and you can't be a label. Now you can have happiness, right? For a little bit of time, but we know it's going to go away. That's life. Like the only constant is change. You can also have sadness, and the sadness will also go away. In fact, if we go back to science, emotions are a chemical burst in the body that are processed, if we process them, within 90 seconds. It takes 90 seconds to move through an emotion, not 8 years of impending doom. 8 years of impending doom comes from actually not processing the 90-second emotion. Just let that land for a minute. Because essentially, we think emotions are bad and that we should only be happy. Emotions are a part of our body and a part of having a nervous system and a part of being alive. Emotions are part of being a human. And therefore, you are going to have them whether you want to or not. And for some reason, based on the wiring as a child, we have been taught that emotions are bad. Be good. Go in the corner. Get spanked if we have a temper tantrum. So ingrained as a child, emotions are bad. And so now we will identify as those things. If we're having a bad day, it's like, I'm sad, I'm depressed. You're not. You have those things, sure. You'll move through them. And if you take care of yourself, then you'll regulate enough to be able to navigate your ups and downs. And I'm not just speaking from a place of like thinking I know everything and not having any experience. I just want to throw that out there. I'm also not perfect. The other day, I was like going off on my partner about him being emotionally unintelligent. And in that moment, I was clearly being emotionally unintelligent because I felt defensive and therefore then like attacked. And so when I did realize it, I was like, oh, realized what was going on and then called myself out for it. But in those moments, like there was no clarity. I was in it and I was fighting. It wasn't helpful because instead of processing what was actually going on in the moment, I just felt attacked and got angry. So you're not your emotions. So if you're not your emotions, then who are you? Okay, very last thing I think that comes up, it's actually quite related to labels, but thoughts. So according to Gabor Mate, and I'm going to go with this, we have four core emotions: happy, sad, or sorry, glad, sad, mad, fearful, so that they rhyme. Glad, sad, mad, fearful. If you are describing your feelings with any other terminology, it's not a feeling, it's a thought. And thoughts are a way that we bypass our emotions. Chew on that for a minute. So one that I mentioned was like being a mom and then living in another country from my children. So if I'm a mom and I live in another country than my children, I'm a bad mom and I feel guilty. So notice how I said I feel guilty. So when I say that, then I'm owning my feelings, or so I think. But what's happening is I'm actually bypassing an emotion and identifying as a thought. So the thought is I am guilty because guilty isn't an emotion, according to Gabor Mate. Guilty is a thought that I can return to bypass my emotion. What do I mean? Well, in this case of being a mom that lives in another country from her children, there's an emotion underlying the thought that I'm guilty or I feel guilty. And that thought can be many things. Right now, that thought is sadness. I feel sad that I can't be there every day, that I'm not there, not I can't be, that I'm not there every day for my kids and now my granddaughter. So I even feel emotion as I say this. So what actually happens when I own what I'm really feeling, which is sadness, and then I can sit with it for 90 seconds and process it, then that's it. I'm sad. But we are so wired to not feel that it's easier for me to beat myself up for as long as I live in another country, I guess, for for being a bad mom or feeling guilty for not being there than it is to just own that like in this moment I'm sad. And that's it. I'm sad and it's okay. I had this situation with my daughter the other day because they got admitted to the hospital yesterday. So I know my daughter, she spent 41 days in the NICU with her baby, and that was a lot. 41 days in a hospital, like not being at home, having other people like dictate what she does. It was a lot. And then she got home. Her baby's immunocompromised, right? Big holes in her heart and damaged lungs and so many things. And then she got sick. So they were at home for a few months, and then my daughter got sick, and then the baby got sick. And so when she called me and told me that they're being admitted to the hospital, she said, "We're being admitted to the hospital. Baby is not well. Because I just had to go and get her sick." And I was like, whoa, 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 whoa. Because this is what we do. I'm like, that's not helpful. Being unkind to yourself. Let's just look at a couple things. You're a full-time caregiver of a baby. That's the and this baby has extra needs. And you're going back into the hospital. And that doesn't feel good. So she's sad that she's going back to the hospital. And she's angry that she's going back to the hospital. And I imagine that she's fearful for her daughter's life. There's three strong emotions that really are begging to come out that she's feeling and repressing by saying, I got her sick. And instead of feeling her feelings, she's just getting mad at herself and then blaming herself for being in this spot. And so I'm like, no, 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 no. And we're not going to do that. First and foremost, this is being a mother to an immunocompromised baby. Like that's what this is here. Number one. And number two, it's okay that you're sad and that you're not happy that you're going back to the hospital. Please feel that. And don't blame yourself. All right. And then that was like, oh, you're right. And then that allowed her to have like a bit of emotion in that moment for what's happening because it's okay to also not be happy. It's also okay to be pissed off that you're going back in the hospital again. Like it doesn't change the situation, but what it does allow you to do, if you don't feel those emotions in that moment, what's going to happen for her is now she just pushed down her anger. And now she's in the hospital, and now she's going to be inundated with people that don't know her child. Listen, Summer is the expert in October. This baby has a 1 in 8.6 billion diagnoses. Nobody else, nobody knows this child. But I'll tell you who's an expert. My daughter, who's with this child 24/7. And then she goes to a hospital, and those doctors and nurses pull out a book and a chart and say, this is where your baby should be. But nobody knows this baby because nobody knows anything about her diagnoses. So they're saying she should hit this milestone and she should weigh this much and she should have this much food. And it's not true. So it's really like if she holds on to that anger and then goes into the hospital and doctors and nurses keep approaching her child like she's from a book, then she's going to get more and more and more pissed off. And then this is not going to turn out okay. But if she addresses her anger in every situation in which it arises and lets it go, she will be more able to fully show up because she won't be angry. Because she'll be like a sieve instead of a pot. A pot that's like fucking blowing up. So you're not your thoughts. You have thoughts, but you are not them. So the question remains, who are you? It's a hard one, right? To answer because even the idea of a soul puts you in a box. In yoga, in the sutras, we talk about the impartial witness, right? Yoga believes, or the governing principle of yoga philosophy is that basically there's a part of you that comes from source. Source is consciousness or the creation. So there's a part of you that comes from source and it is housed in a body for a lifetime. And then when that's complete, you return to source. And then this is the only experience that you will ever have. So this is the only experience that Colynn will ever have. Because if I am a drop from the ocean of consciousness and I land right here in this body with these green eyes and this body and these teeth and like and I'm born to the parents I'm born to and I evolve and I'm called Colynn and then I create a personality around my experiences and my trauma in my life and I grow and I evolve as I do. And then this body ceases to exist. That drop of consciousness, that drop of the ocean goes back into the ocean, right? So this part of my soul that comes from source goes back to source. And then let's just say it comes back for another round. I will never experience this again because the drop of ocean that returns to the ocean, if you take another drop, it will never be the same drop. That's a little bit like mind blowing to me and a lot of like, oh shit. So I'll never have an experience like this again. Like the I that I am will never be again. So this is pretty cool opportunity to be where I am and recognizing that like I am not I. So the practice that I give as homework is to sit in meditation and do that daily and to ask yourself, who am I? And every answer that comes up, the answer in Sanskrit is neti neti. Neither this, neither that. So, who am I? Colynn. Neti neti. Who am I? I'm a mother. Netty, netty. Who am I? Right? Because that part of me, that essence of me, could have been a father last time or a rock. So I'm not necessarily any of those things. This experience right now is identifying as that, and I'm not that. I am not my body. I am not my emotions. I am not my thoughts, and I am not my labels. So who am I? And that's what I've got for you today. So thank you so much for listening. Thank you for joining me on Yoga is Science. I hope today's episode offered you a fresh perspective on the incredible synergy between the ancient yogic practices and our modern day science. Don't forget to subscribe, leave a review, and share this episode with someone who could benefit from these insights. And until next time, keep exploring the science of life.